Maybe not.
Okay. Says we're live.
All right. Okay. All right. Welcome to this edition of Morgan You Asked For podcast. Trying something a little bit different here, but I think it didn't work. I thought we were going to get on Twitter, but I got to do one more thing, I think. So maybe next time we'll see. Lots to talk about in the NFL. Obviously, the championship games were played last week, and then talking about the Super Bowl, second time in 3 years for this matchup. And then we got basketball to talk about, and then probably the biggest story in Iowa right now is the Caitlin Clark is coming back this weekend and jersey retirement, and how much that is going to be to get in, and just everything that surrounds that on national TV. And then I think the most intriguing part is it's against Juju Watkins and USC, but we'll get to that at the end of the podcast here. A couple things. I do want to thank Steve Shetler and Dan Bryce for getting us on, Steve Shetler Media and Dan Bryce at DB Landscaping. A couple guys that do help us out here on the podcast and get us to reach to a bigger audience and help us get a little bit bigger here on Morgan You Asked For podcast. Welcome, Trev. And you're the NFL guy here. Just kind of give us your recaps on the games, so we can start with let's start with the NFC one. Not near the game that the other one was. But how did you see the Eagles and Commanders?
Well, I mean, it's just another week of proving that Saquon Barkley was worth every dollar that the Eagles spent for him. Running backs still matter. There was a couple years there where people thought running backs didn't matter anymore. We're seeing that they do. The running game and defense obviously still matters come playoff time. So Saquon's worth every dollar. And then Washington just made too many mistakes from early on in the game with turnovers, fumbling the ball. They weren't buttoned up. That was a new spot for them. They haven't been in the championship game in a long time. Eagles, second time in 3 years. You could see they were more comfortable in the game. And, hats off to Washington for making it close there for a while. But, toward the end there, Eagles just ran away with it, which isn't that surprising. I mean, Eagles are a train right now. And I think the Super Bowl that we're going to get into here in a little bit, it could be an all-time clash, just like the last one was between these two teams.
Yeah, people forget, obviously the Eagles made the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Last year they were 10-0 or somewhere right around that, and then kind of collapsed. But they've won for the last 3 years. Since Sirianni's been there, they've won. And I know at the beginning of the year he was having his issues. The team was having a couple issues there, yelling at people, Hurts and Sirianni relationship broken, whatever you want to talk about. But whatever it is, they're winning. They are a great team. You can make an argument they're the best team left. Saquon is proving that running backs still matter. If you have a good one, you got to have a good one. And John Mara with the Giants just still has to be kicking himself, because you could tell when you watched Hard Knocks, he didn't want him to go, and he really didn't want him to go to the Eagles or in the division. And I'm surprised because of that actually Daboll and the GM still have a job.
Yeah, we talked about last week. I think it's just a classic case that Mara's been going through coaches every 2 to 3 years. So I think he's just going to let them stick it out. Unless they find a quarterback, those two are done. For Howie Roseman and the Eagles, Howie Roseman continues to prove that he's one of the best, if not the best GMs in the entire NFL when it comes to drafting. They've hit on a ton of draft picks. You and I talk about that every year, the importance of it, having players on cheap contracts to control the cap. That's part of the reason they had some money to go and spend on Saquon, is because they've hit on young guys the past few years via the draft, which is important. So Howie Roseman's been there a while. He makes a lot of smart decisions. And again, even after the NFC Championship, when Jalen Hurts goes, if Sirianni let me out of my straitjacket, and he's such a serious guy when he talks. It almost seems like he's upset, but we've talked about it. The Eagles, Sirianni, Philadelphia, it's weird. It's different. It's not like any relationship I've ever seen between coach and quarterback, but however it works, it's working though for him.
Well, and I just look at Jalen Hurts just wins, and he always kind of gets passed over. He won in high school, went to Alabama, started as a freshman, won a national title or at least got to the championship game. But then Tua comes in and they kind of battle it out, take turns. Hurts gets hurt. Tua comes in, wins the national championship for him. Then the next year, Tua's a starter, Hurts is a backup. Tua gets hurt. Hurts has to come in. I mean, it's just back and forth, but he just wins. He goes to Oklahoma. He ends up getting second in the Heisman. Obviously had a great career at Oklahoma in the 1 year. And then he's just, this is his fourth year in the NFL, fifth year? And he's been to 2 Super Bowls already. And last year led his team to a 10-0 record before kind of the wheels fell off. But he just wins no matter what he does.
Yeah, he's a winner. He doesn't throw the ball real pretty. He's a little bit undersized. Obviously, it works for the tush push, though, of course, which we'll get into that with the AFC game. But yeah, you're right. He wins a lot every single year. Last year they had a little bit of collapse out at the end. I think they lost 6 straight or 7 straight, including that playoff game. But however, they got the train back on the tracks. I don't know how they did, but they did because, again, after week 4, I think they were sitting there at 2-2. That's when Sirianni had the incident with the fan, shaved his head. And ever since then, they haven't looked back. So whatever they did, they got it corrected.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just – and as a city/fan base, they are probably the least liked in the country. Them and Boston and New York are all 3 – those are probably the 3 worst Northeast people are just kind of that way. I'm not from the Northeast. Never really been there. But you look at fan bases, they just are not well liked and they don't care. And they're just going to do it their way. And that's the way it is.
They're a loud fan base for sure. They're pretty obnoxious. We've seen Eagle fans in the stands, lots of videos of that, some specifically that we've seen recently. But yeah, this is the Eagles were the dominant team in the NFC. We'll get to the AFC Championship here in just a second. But I think if you were to replay these playoffs 10 times, I think this is the Super Bowl matchup that we'd get 7 or 8 out of those 10 times. Yeah.
I mean, obviously the Bills are going to beat the Chiefs. Again, like you said, if you play every game 10 times, the Bills are going to beat the Chiefs a few times there. I do think the Chiefs win more than the Bills, but I do think that the Eagles are just a lot better than everybody in the NFC. I don't like to see the Lions get by the Commanders and see that game in Detroit. I do think the Eagles are playing better. We're playing better and just a better team, but you get the NFC Championship back in the 2nd straight year in Detroit. I think the Lions put up one heck of a fight, and they win several of those matchups as well.
Yeah, they might be able to win some. I wish they would have been healthy going into the playoffs if they would have had Hutchinson and McNeil and Davis and some of those other guys. Then it really would have been a much better battle. But switching over to the AFC game, the one that was really close, Josh Allen's now 0-4. And one thing I did want to hit on is I think Ryan Clark said this. I don't watch SportsCenter really anymore unless there's a game on ESPN that I have to watch. Otherwise I don't really watch many other programs. But I think I saw something that Ryan Clark said there's going to be a lot of these AFC players, quarterbacks specifically, that end up with gold jackets that don't have a ring when their career's over. When you look at the big 3, besides Patrick Mahomes, you look at Burrow, Allen, and Jackson. They're all 28 years old, all 3 of them. They're all going to turn 29 either before the season or during. Let's say they've got 6 more years of prime left between the 3. I think, if you would ask this question 2 or 3 years ago, people would all said all 3 of them will probably end up with the ring at some point. Well, if they've only got 6 years of prime left, the chances of all 3 of them getting a ring aren't very likely. And then the second part of that is if any of them do get past Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs and slay the dragon there, they still have to go play the Super Bowl and play the NFC opponent. Right. So we could be looking back in 15, 20 years, and maybe only one of those 3 gets a ring or 2 or none of them for that matter.
Yeah. Well, Mahomes is the same age, right? And he 27, 28?
No, he's either 29 or he's already 30.
Okay, so he's a year older than those guys.
I think it was the same. Let me see here. I'm looking real quick.
Him and Allen were in the same draft class, weren't they?
No.
They weren't.
The Bills traded away. Let me see here.
The Bills traded it to, and that's kind of the thing. Xavier Worthy, isn't he a Bills draft pick for the Chiefs?
Yeah, the Bills traded away their position for both Patrick Mahomes and Xavier Worthy with the Chiefs in the two different drafts. Mahomes is 29, so he's just a little bit older than those other three. But it sucks for the Bills. The Chiefs were more buttoned up, specifically on those tush pushes that Buffalo tried. I don't mind them trying it. Allen's a big guy. He's got long arms, but they went to the left a lot. Tony Romo even spoke about it during the game, that the Chiefs scouted that out, that Allen loves to go to the left, and they just kept doing that. You almost wonder if they should have had one where maybe they fake it to the left, or they do a boot to the left, and then Allen circles back to the right, kind of like the Chiefs draw plays with Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They relied on Allen a little too much. A lot of Bills fans are mad that they didn't use Cook more in the game, which I agree with, especially on the last drive. He's one of their best players, and he didn't have enough touches. But there's just the Chiefs, they're Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods and Muhammad Ali all mixed together, and they just know how to win. And these other teams, it's going to be really tough for them to ever get past Kansas City. I hope they do. Like I said, I'd love to see Allen, Burrow, and Jackson all get a ring in their career, but it's not guaranteed by any means.
Well, that's so Mahomes has been to 7 straight AFC Championship games. He's lost to Brady, the greatest ever, and then Burrow, and both in overtime.
Mm-hmm.
So he has not been beaten in a regular game in the AFC Championship game in his career.
Yeah, and eventually, I don't think they're going to win 10 straight or anything, but still, like I said, even if any of these guys get past the Chiefs, they still have to go play the Super Bowl. Right. And there's no guarantee they win that game. So even if you slay the Dragon in the Chiefs one year, that may feel like a Super Bowl win. You still got to go play another game.
Yeah, and then you never know what happened. I mean, you look at the Chiefs. Chiefs were a big-time favorite against the Bucs, weren't they? And then it just didn't work out. I mean, whatever happened in that game, their linemen were hurt, and the Bucs essentially dominated that game. Or it was almost like Brady was there. This was their one opportunity, and they were not letting that go away. And yeah, so Brady's really the only one that's gotten Mahomes more than once.
Yeah, I forget what the spread ended up being before the kickoff of that Bucs-Chiefs game, but the Chiefs were down 3 offensive linemen.
Yeah,
that's the Super Bowl I've won the most money in. I had everything on the Bucs that year. Mm-hmm. I was telling all my friends,
you were on the Bucs from like week 5. Just wait. You were on them early. I mean,
and then with the Chiefs being down 3 offensive linemen, the Bucs defense in that playoff run, they were phenomenal. So that was a good year for me as far as betting goes. But yeah, back to that. I mean, it sucks for Allen and them, but really that last drive, they get the ball back with a little over 3 minutes or whatever it was. I think they got a first down, and then all they got after that was 5 yards. Allen threw a couple bad passes. 3rd down, you get 5 yards, and then on 4th, I mean, is that coaching? Is that all on Allen? But the Chiefs do know that Josh Allen loves to go to his right, and they that's where they sent the blitz from. So if they had Andy Reid drawn up a play, they would have went left and fooled him. But the Chiefs are ready. Spags is ready. That's why it's tough to beat these dynasties. And you take all the stupid penalty stuff out of it that everyone's complaining about. The Chiefs are just more buttoned up than other teams.
And right or wrong, that last play. Now, when Allen threw that ball, I didn't know what was happening, but he put the ball right where it had to be to give his guy a chance. It could not have been a better throw under those circumstances. Now, the play could have been better and a better option, but for what actually happened, all he can do is give his guy a chance. It would have been a hell of a catch. You're not sure what's going on if you're Kincaid and you're trying to make a diving catch. But he gave his guy a chance, and I was unbelievable how good a pass that was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a great pass under the circumstances. He, Mahomes, are probably about the only 2 guys that can make that throw in that situation. I mean, he's running backwards and just flings it, and that's the difference. I mean, if he makes that catch, maybe they run some time, go down and score a touchdown, and Mahomes never gets a chance to. But that's the difference between going to the Super Bowl and not. I mean, you got to make those plays, and then the Chiefs get the ball back, and they have to kill. So I think the Chiefs gained more yards killing the clock than the Bills did on their final drive. And that's the experience, that's the confidence, that's the Andy Reid factor, and that's why Mahomes is like I said, he's like Tiger Woods and Michael Jordan just put together in one.
Yeah, and then that last play that sealed it, P. Ryan hadn't touched the ball all game. And you throw it to him on the most important play potentially of the game. You never know. Like he drops it or he hasn't really been hit and he gets hit and fumble. I mean, just you never know, but it's where you practice, and you have belief and trust in your guys. And then Andy Reid just being smart enough to know, too, that they don't think that he's going to get the ball. So we're going to throw it to him because he's not going to get covered.
Yeah, it's almost like the Chiefs had that play, for weeks or months.
Yep,
and they were just saving it at the right time.
Yep, they ran it every week at practice. Hadn't used it in a game. Hey, this is it. Let's go.
Yeah, and then again, going back to the Bills, I mean, it felt like they kept running the same plays over and over again, and I get that to an extent. Like I said, Josh Allen, I would have done the play that they did a couple times at least because he's so big. I would have at least tried it a couple times, but I thought they didn't get Cook involved enough, and I thought they were a little bit too predictable on offense at times. And early, I mean, Josh Allen was off. I mean, Allen played a roller coaster game. The entire team did. Their defensive backfield, their D-backs were pretty banged up. That was one factor in the game. So when you play the Chiefs, I mean, you got to be on your A game, and the Bills weren't. They were on their B game, you could call it. They were close, but you got to be on that A game to close that out.
Yeah, everything. The Chiefs are just going to take advantage. I know Elam, I don't know who the D-back came in for the injured guy, but they just kept going to him, and they were, as long as the Bills are playing man-to-man, whoever he was guarding was getting the ball. And that's what good teams and good coaches, they realize the matchup, and we're going to keep going after you because you're either going to let him catch it or you're going to have a penalty. And it was all day on him.
Yeah, Elam was a first-round pick out of Florida a few years ago, and you're right when he came in the game, they went after him over and over again. So the Chiefs knew the Bills were banged up in the defensive backfield. They took advantage of it. Again, I felt really bad for the Bills and Josh Allen because I'd like to see, like I said, it'd be a shame for some of these guys to, retire at the end of their careers and not have a ring because of how talented they are. But we'll see what happens. And then, getting into the Super Bowl, I thought, for next week, maybe we'll do our official predictions, score, MVP. Maybe we'll talk about some bets that we like. Those are always fun, national anthem type stuff. But, everybody's, complaining about this matchup. I mean, the Eagles are a loaded roster. I think the Eagles have a slightly better roster. I think the Chiefs roster is underrated, but, you're going against a dynasty. So the Eagles are going to have to be buttoned up. Everybody's talking about turnovers, which I agree with. I think an important thing is going to be you don't want to have stupid penalties if you're the Eagles, and that's delay of games, 12 men on the field, or, we see it sometimes where a player gets a first down and throws the ball, or after the play, guys are fighting and you get a 15-yarder. You can't have any of those. And then I think another thing to pay attention to is the Chiefs are one of the best tackling teams in the league on defense, especially come playoff time. They ramp it up. So if they can contain Barkley and not let him have 20-plus yard runs and, hold the Eagles to field goals, I think is going to be the key for the Chiefs in this one.
Yeah, that's what I noticed the last few weeks watching the Eagles and Saquon. People don't tackle him in the open field. They'll have him at 10 or 15 yards. He breaks a tackle or a guy misses, takes a bad angle, whatever. Now it's all of a sudden 50, 60, 70-yard touchdown run. And that's how he gets his 200 yards. It's because of a big run. If you can and it's just like anything, it's what the Cyclones do, it's what the Hawkeyes do. Make the Eagles go on a 10-play drive, they're probably going to mess up. Now, NFL players don't mess up like college players do. And you've got some of the best players. I mean, Hurts is really good. They got good tight end. They got good receivers. But if you don't give up the 70-yard touchdown run on the second play of the game, first play of the game, and you just get him down at 15 yards, maybe Hurts throws an interception or a bad snap or a fumble, You just have to make them run another play.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You don't want to get killed by these long runs by Barkley. Barkley looks like this is what he was supposed to be coming out of Penn State. You know, he had some good moments there with the Giants, but he never had a real quarterback there. So he never had this good of an offensive line. This is the best offensive line in the league. The Eagles are. They're a little bit banged up. Everybody's banged up right now. I mean, it's a long season, but he's finally got a great offensive line in front of him. They've got the two good receivers, good tight ends, like you said. So teams can't really load the box, or if they do, the Eagles can beat you with A.J. Brown and Smith.
Yeah.
But
A.J. Brown's as good as anybody. Yeah.
Yeah, that is going to be the key. If Saquon's getting 5, 6, 7 yards of carry, I mean, you don't want that, but you'll take it over these 20, 30, 40-yard runs. And then, as you said, if it's 10 to 15 play drives, you hope that they get a penalty or they fumble, or you hold them to a field goal and, you give the ball back to Patrick Mahomes and hope you go down and get a touchdown. And, there's that 4-point swing.
Yeah. You just have to make teams run another play because you never know what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the biggest thing the Eagles have done. They big time runs. And I mean, Barkley looked like the old, you get Bo Jackson or in the Tecmo Bowl where you just run back and forth and no one will ever catch you. That's exactly what it looked like on that play.
That's what he's looked like all year, and the playoffs included. I mean, he's having one of the best years, in history for a running back. So, yeah, this is going to be an all-time battle. Their last Super Bowl matchup was a classic, and this, we'll have to see how it plays out. But if you look at the talent on both teams, and then the dynasty going for the three-peat, this has. I know everyone's complaining about it, but this has the potential to be an all-timer.
Oh, I agree. I think this game is going to be great. It's funny. I was reading a thing today that Pat Riley secretly, obviously it wasn't actually Pat Riley we were talking, but Pat Riley secretly hopes the Chiefs win so they can print everything with three-peat on it, and he owns that trademark and gets a lot of money out of that stuff. So,
yeah, I'm sure he needs the money right now. He's got the Jimmy Butler issue going on right now.
I mean, we could spend a whole podcast on that. I don't know what's going on there. He's lost his mind.
Yeah, I don't know that's the NBA though, that they coddle their players, and Pat Riley's not standing for it. So I kind of like that, but no.
Oh, I did too. But yeah,
I think it's if people can take their hatred for both these teams away, this should be a really good Super Bowl. At least I hope it is. Now we'll have to see how it plays out. But like I said, if you were to play these playoffs again 10 times, I think 7 or 8 out of 10, this would be the matchup that we'd get.
Yeah, I agree. They're the two best left, and it's just really, really good. And Andy Reid, I believe, is just so underrated. He's still the most wins ever for the Eagles, the most wins ever for the Chiefs. And, people got tired of the Patriots, and you kind of thought no combo, Belichick, Brady, that wouldn't happen for a long time. Well, it's happening right now. They're really Reid and Mahomes are just like Brady and Belichick, only Reid is actually his offensive coach and actually coaching Patrick Mahomes is the only difference. But it's just great to see. Again, I don't have a rooting interest for either one of these. I like the story. You're going to have a story either way. But overall, just for the story, I want to see the Chiefs win because it's never happened before. Just I'd like to see history. But I don't know if that's really going to happen, but that's the story.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that the Chiefs have been sort of disrespected all year, even though they're the back-to-back champs. They went 15-2, as Nick Wright likes to joke around about. But, yeah, Andy Reid and Mahomes, I mean, I think Andy Reid's, by next year he'll probably pass. I think he's got a chance to pass Belichick for the most playoff wins of all time. A few more seasons, he's going to have the regular season win total wrapped up. And most people don't believe Andy Reid's anywhere close to retiring. He's got a few more years left at least. He loves it too much. He doesn't have a lot of hobbies, so he likes football. And even if they three-peat, I think he'll be back next year.
It'd be hard to walk away from Mahomes, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because you probably, if they win it this year, Mahomes is going to turn 30. You're probably going to have a few more chances at least to get another one, if not more.
And Mahomes has 17 wins now in the playoffs, I believe. And Brady has 35, which is crazy, so double. But I believe he's second now. And 17 playoff wins is more than a lot of teams ever. And he's not even 30 years old yet.
Yeah, I think he's 17-3 in his playoff career now, because he lost the Super Bowl and then the 2 AFC title games.
Yep.
So I think he's 17-3
right.
in his playoff career. Maybe it's 18-3 now. No, I think it's 17, like you said. Brett Favre, I think, was 13-12 or 12-11 in his career. And Favre played forever. So yeah, Mahomes is off to the best start ever by any quarterback in history, even off to a faster start than Brady was. Right. So if he can wrap up this three-peat, I mean, that's really going to close the gap. Now, if you're someone that thinks that Brady's the best of all time, which it's really tough to argue that, I don't think Patrick has to get to 7 to necessarily overtake Brady someday. But this three-peat would sure go a long way, because, as you said, nobody's ever done it.
Right. The only argument would be the Packers won the last NFL championship, and then they won Super Bowl 1 and 2. So technically they won 3 in a row, but it wasn't 3 Super Bowls.
Right. And that was before free agency and there were less teams.
Right. Yeah.
That's not really trying to take it away, but it was just a different time and a different era. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I was hoping for the Bills to make it, just because I was hoping it was their turn. But, at the end of the day, like I said, maybe next week we'll do some predictions, some prop bets.
Yep.
I've got some I like. But it should be a good one, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's transition to college basketball. Let's start with the Hawkeyes. Won a close one against Penn State at home. Penn State's not good. Iowa needed it after the 2 losses in LA and then the home loss to Minnesota. Penn State had 2 chances and missed shots at the end of the buzzer. Hawks hang on. Hawks go on the road to a team that has a worse record than them and got beat by almost 20 against Ohio State. Nothing more to say. More apathy. What is Fran doing? He's no fire, no energy. Another week, no changes for the Hawks.
Yeah, I told you last week I haven't paid any attention to him, and that still remains true this week. I watched the Iowa women last night, so we could talk about them maybe here in a few minutes. I've really got nothing to say about Iowa men basketball. I don't even know if you just want to move straight to Iowa State men. A little bit more interesting.
That's what I was. That's why I started with the Hawks. Iowa State's a different conversation. Iowa State goes to Arizona for 2 games Saturday afternoon against Arizona State. Doesn't play great for 30 minutes, but then the last probably 7-8 minutes, and they end the game on a 19-3 run. So I think they won by 14 or 15. Just a good win. The story was the amount of people there from Iowa State, 6,000 people. Dan Hurley called it a home neutral, the most away fans he's seen at a game there, more than Kansas, more than Arizona. I mean, it's just he was super impressed. Curtis Jones goes off, scores 33 points. Just shows how good Iowa State is. And then 2 days later, they go down to Arizona, who is not ranked, but 7-1 in the Big 12. Have lost 5 games total, all quad 1 losses, playing better. Obviously, one of the best traditions in college basketball, have national championships, been good for 30 years. One of the tougher places to play. And Iowa State gave them everything they had. Curtis Jones does not have a good game. Taman Lipsey comes out, scores 14, 15 points in the first half. And then Keyshawn Gilbert has a great second half. Jefferson just solid again. Iowa State gets fouled up 2 with 2 seconds left. 1 for 2 from the free throw line. Caleb Love, if you remember, played at North Carolina for 3 years. Now this is his second year at Arizona. Scored 30 points, I believe, against Duke in Coach K's last game in the Final Four. and then didn't play super well in the championship game where they lost to UConn, I believe. I could be wrong on that, but maybe. But 1 for 11 from three-point range, 2.2 seconds, catches the ball, shoots it from about 55, 60 feet. It goes in, tie ball game, overtime. He hits 2 more threes, and Iowa State loses by, I don't know, I think 10 or 11. Overtime wasn't really close, but it took a 55, 60-foot shot to lose that game on the road. It sucked because you had it in the bag, and if you can make both free throws, then that shot doesn't matter. Big scheme of things, it doesn't kill you, but those are the ones that it closes the gap. I heard some guys talking about that today. It closes the gap between Iowa State and that next tier, because right now, if you look at bracketology, they're a 1 seed, but they're the 4. So an Alabama or a Florida or Tennessee, that gap closes. So if you happen to lose a game, maybe you're not supposed to. That's where you can get jumped. Now, is there a huge difference between a 1 seed and a 2 seed? No. But Iowa State's never had a 1 seed. So that's just a goal and I think something Iowa State fans would really like. The other thing is a Big 12 championship, and I think that makes it really hard because I don't know if you watched this one, but Houston, Kansas on Saturday, or saw what happened there. Houston was down 6 with 8 seconds left and forced a second overtime and then won the game. And so they're still undefeated. Kansas needed to win that game for Iowa State to help. So now Iowa State is 2 games back with a trip to Houston, and Houston doesn't come back to Ames later. So it's just a one, they only play them once. So winning the conference, I believe, is going to be real tough now, the regular season. So in the big scheme of things, a loss to Arizona doesn't happen, but it's just a kick to the nuts in general, and it just stinks because you had the great opportunity to get a great road win.
Yeah, you're right. Those are the losses that could be the difference between a 1 or a 2 seed, as you just mentioned. How's their? I know you mentioned Houston, but what's their next 2 or 3 games look like? Does their schedule get a little bit easier, or is it still a tough road?
Not really, because they play Kansas State Saturday. In Ames, should win that one, but then they go on the road to Allen Fieldhouse, big Monday again at Kansas, which will be really tough. I mean, can Iowa State win it? Absolutely, but it's really hard. I mean, so that's a potential 3rd loss. Now, again, none of those losses are. I mean, West Virginia is a good team, and Kansas and Arizona are great teams and great programs, but those are the games you need to win to get that number 1 seed and to win a conference championship. And so far, they haven't been able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, after Sunday's over in a couple weeks with the Super Bowl, like I said, I'll start kind of getting into to basketball mode. But I've been starting to pay a little bit more attention to the records. I still haven't watched a ton of games, but I'm starting to look at who the good teams are at. I know I was at our conference earlier today, and during one of the breaks, I went down to at a William Hill Sportsbook, and I saw they had Iowa State at 16-1 to win the title. So I thought about throwing $20 on that just for the heck of it, but I may have to do that here one of these days. I don't know what they are on the online apps, back there in Iowa, but they were 16-1 here.
That's not bad. I know to go to the Final Four, they were plus like 300 before the loss to Arizona. I haven't looked since, but they were like the 4th or 5th best odds to get to the Final Four.
Yeah, still good, still a good season, obviously, for Iowa State. I hope they could get a 1 seed. That'd be pretty cool to see. And, at least there's one team on the men's side. Obviously, Drake's doing good too, but of the big 2, we should say, that's doing well. Like I said, Iowa men, haven't paid any attention to them and don't plan to. There's no reason to, at least for me. I'm not a diehard, so.
Yeah, I watch it, and I just watch Fran, and I just like watching basketball, so that's why I watch. But it's weird, the difference in him between 5 years ago and this year. And I believe I've said it here, or if not, I was talking to somebody that you almost wonder if someone said something to him. Like, when Beth got the job, said, we're not doing that anymore. And then if that's the case, then it's not he's checked out. It's not he's just told. We all have bosses and we all kind of get told what to do. Now, you don't necessarily see that happen in big time college athletics, but maybe he was told that. And then that changes the whole dynamic. But they are really, really, really bad defensively. And they need to make I believe they need to make some personnel changes on who they play and when and where they play them. But I don't know if that would solve all the problems.
Yeah, it's tough to say. Like I said, we got to get Zach on here one of these times soon. Maybe he could do a March Madness little preview with us, or at least with you at some point. Like I said, I'm sure there's some people out there that would like to hear a little bit more about Iowa men. I can't really speak about them. I pay them no attention.
Let's switch back to NFL real quick. I was just got a thing here, and obviously I'm a Bears fan, and the Bears hired Declan Doyle, Chris Doyle's son, as offensive coordinator at 28, coming from the Broncos there in Colorado. One, didn't know he had an older brother than Dylan that played at Iowa and then went to Baylor when Chris got fired. Totally understandable. And two, obviously didn't know he was moving up the ranks so fast. He was 28 years old. Now, Ben Johnson's going to call the plays, but still he's learned from Sean Payton, and now he's learning from Ben Johnson. He's on the fast track to being a true offensive coordinator and a potential head coach at age 28. Rising fast, and obviously probably got his foot in the door because of his dad, but his dad's circle has not been as good as it once was. So I'm sure there's some people that don't want any part of him. And so I'm sure he's had to work his way, especially right after that time. He really had to prove himself that he's worthy of it, not just because of his dad.
Yeah, 28's you're right. He is moving up fast. I'm sure, for him to get that job, Sean Payton had to sign off, give him a good word of recommendation. And, maybe Ben Johnson knows him from their past. I haven't read into it that much, but if Ben Johnson gets the Bears rolling and they have 2 or 3 years of success on offense, he could have a head coaching job in 3 or 4 years. Cause we saw after Sean McVay got hired, there was this trend going around of young coaches getting hired, and maybe he could be one in 3, 4, 5 years that gets a chance at a head coaching job.
Yeah. Once you become an offensive coordinator, your next step is just that. And what happens, in college, and I think the pros are probably similar. The reason they want those names, even though he's not calling plays, is it gets you a little bit more experience with the press because you have the weekly press conference. You get, just a few more responsibilities and things that you have to do to start approaching and helping you get that next job. It gets you in front of more cameras and more people, and you'll have the camera on you just a little bit more during the games, things like that. Let alone you're learning and doing the job, but those are the things behind the scenes that really do matter, and get your face out in front and noticed.
Yeah, more responsibilities. I mean, if you go from a position coach, a tight end coach, to all of a sudden, you're just coaching that position for the most part, and you're helping out in other areas. Once you go to offensive coordinator, you're in charge of kind of the entire offense. Obviously, Ben will be calling plays, but he's going to have to be helping there put the game plan together. And then, as you said, the next step is head coach. But you're right, more press conferences. There's a bigger role to fill. So we'll see how he does. I mean, there's a lot of people who think the Bears are going to have success pretty quickly because of Ben Johnson coming in there and getting Caleb Williams under control. We know they've got good receivers and tight ends there. They've got to get the O-line shored up. I'm sure Ben Johnson knows that because that's the first thing they did when they got to Detroit was get Sewell in there and some other offensive linemen. So I would think they're really going to focus on that. But again, if they have 2 or 3 years in a row of success there, look for his name to be out there for head coaching jobs, maybe even at college levels too.
Right. Yeah, I just saw that on the thing. So sorry, that was kind of off
Yeah.
track here, but with going back to college basketball, Auburn's your clear cut one. Um, Duke is really, really good. Cooper Flagg is the man, and he is the real deal. As long as he's leading Duke, they're going to be hard to beat. The ACC is not very good this year compared to history, so I just don't see a whole lot of losses there. Then Iowa State, Florida, Tennessee, Alabama. Those are kind of your next little group of people there. So you just have to keep winning games. You got to win the ones you're supposed to win, and then hope that you play well. And if you can win this game, you win Saturday and then win Monday, and the last 4 games on the road, you went 500 in them. Now the order you would have liked to have been a little bit different. That's not too bad because you're going to lose some games. They weren't going 20-0 in the conference, and it's just not realistic in college basketball. You are down one starter. People are tending to forget that now, but he's still hurt. He's not coming back for a couple more weeks. So they still are playing a little bit different than maybe they're used to or want to do when they're at their best. But they're still one of the best teams in the country. And even when they don't play their best, they are in position to win every basketball game. And if they lose, it's just right at the end of the game where a couple shots don't go your way.
Yeah, for Iowa State, I mean, as you mentioned, as long as they can stay in that 1 or 2 seed come tournament time, then everything should be okay, at least on paper. If they start dropping a bunch of games and all of a sudden you go down to a 3 or 4 seed, it's going to be kind of a weird feeling for Iowa State fans given the start to the season. But the Big 12 is a gauntlet. We know that year in and year out for basketball. So as you said, not going to go undefeated. Just got to make sure you're winning quite a few more. If you drop a game here and there, it's not the end of the world. But being down to starter is definitely part of it. But it's they still got that 1 seed in sight though, which is the main. That's good at least.
Yeah. Let's kind of go to the last thing here, and we can talk about this. I'm going to let you talk about this a little bit more. This is more Caitlin Clark jersey retirement ceremony Saturday against USC, and we kind of teased this right at the beginning. $1,700, most expensive ticket, I believe, and I don't think you can get in there for under $300 or $400. And now we're not even watching Caitlin Clark play. Last year, at least you were watching her play. Now she's going to be sitting in the stands cheering just like you are. But it's on Big Fox, I believe. Every shot that Juju hits, every move Juju makes, they're going to cut to Caitlin and watch her reaction, because if Juju stays 4 years and continues on the same trajectory, she's going to be right at Caitlin's record or maybe break it. She's on pace to break it right now. Now, you never know how that's going to, things happen. But it's going to be the biggest women's college basketball viewing audience, and she's not even going to play because of one Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, the ticket's expensive. All the pregame hype, that's going to be a show. And you're right, Juju. We'll see. I'm sure she's going to have a heck of a game. I mean, if Iowa can keep it within 10, I'd be impressed. They could barely get past Northwestern the other night. They're going through some struggles right now. They've got to get some stuff figured out because time is starting to run out on the season. But thankfully, they've gotten a couple wins here lately. Like I said, I don't think Iowa has much of a chance in this one against USC. USC is one of the favorites to win it all. Juju Kiki there on USC is going to be a top 10 pick in the WNBA draft coming up in May. So, I'm sure, like you said, every time Juju makes a big shot, they're going to cut to Caitlin. They're probably going to have the point tracker showing, what she has to average per game over the next couple of years or next, whatever it's going to be. So, $1,700 is a lot to pay just to get in, just for the ceremony. Right. I definitely wouldn't. I'm not paying that to go to the ceremony. Now, if I was rich and had a bunch of money, and if Caitlin was playing, maybe, but That's a lot just to get into to see her jersey retired. But it's still it's a cool honor. You know, Caitlin, I think today it was said that she's not going to compete in the NBA 3-point contest, but she is going to compete in the WNBA one. She wanted that to be her first one there in Indianapolis this year, which I think that's fine. I don't see that as a big deal.
Yeah. No, I agree. She seems to be very much. We talked about it over and over. I think, she played so much basketball and had so much attention. She is liking this take a step back and relax for a few months. Now, don't kid yourself. She's not relaxed. She's working her tail off. She's trying to get better, but just spotlight, showing up, being on camera, playing on TV, being the center of attention, everything she does, I think she is liking that step back. Now, she still is doing it a little bit. Now, she's a Chiefs fan. She's been a Chiefs fan. But anytime you're stepping foot in the box with Taylor Swift to watch the Chiefs, the camera's going to be on you all the time. But I don't think she cared about that.
No, I'm sure she probably enjoyed that. And
right.
Yeah, that's just another thing for the conspiracy theory people to hate. I remember when Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce first started dating, they thought that was just a short-term thing and it was forced by the NFL. So now that it's going on even longer, people just have to keep making up stuff, I guess, to keep the story going. But yeah, for Caitlin, I saw like a week or two ago, she went 50 out of 54 from three at a practice
on her birthday. Yep.
Yeah, on her birthday. You're right. That's when it was. So you're right. She's trying to stay out of limelight as much as she can. I mean, anytime she goes out to a basketball game or a public event, she's going to be seen. There's not much you can do about that. I'm glad she's not playing in that unrivaled league. In my opinion, she doesn't really need to be focusing on that. The only thing that matters, and I think she's got her head on right with this, is what she does in the WNBA, winning games, winning playoff games, and hopefully winning a championship for Indiana. That's all that really matters. And I think that's what she's focused on for the main part.
Yeah, and you brought this up, Indiana re-signed Kelsey Mitchell. That's a good move. At the beginning of the year last year, we didn't know if it worked so well with those two because Kelsey kind of a little bit of ball dominant at that time. But the more the season got on and the more they were together, I think they're a good pair because they are different players. And it's a good signing. It's a good veteran, been around the league, knows what's going on. And when Caitlin needs a little bit of break with the ball, Kelsey can do it.
Yeah, those first 12 games last year were rough. I didn't know if I was going to make it through an entire season. Then they got better, and they started to play really well. Kelsey Mitchell made vital shots game after game for them down the stretch. It's the best backcourt in the WNBA. We'll see how they do this year. They should come out of the gates firing, I think, this year. Again, Caitlin's rookie year, those first 12 to 15 games were rough. I mean, the schedule and all those different things. Now that they've had a full season together, I think – I didn't see for sure, but I think it was just a 1-year deal. That's fine. They've got Aaliyah Boston and Lexi Hull. We'll see if they make any other roster moves and with the draft. But that was important to get her back. I'm glad she's back at least for another year. I think it sounds like, if not longer. But definitely that was a big win for the Fever to make sure she didn't go somewhere else.
Yeah, just a couple other moves in the WNBA. Kelsey Plum gets traded to the Spark, and a 3-team with the Seattle team, I believe. Draft picks, everything. I don't know who all went where, but I know Kelsey Plum's going to LA, and I think one of Seattle's players is going to Las Vegas. So big name there. And then Brittany Griner is leaving Phoenix, and I believe going to Atlanta. Those are kind of the big names there. And then kind of getting back to Iowa, and you brought this up, but I did hear this. Bracketology, I believe ESPN had Iowa and Iowa State playing in one of those first 4 play-in games. I don't know how that would go over. Obviously, there'd be a lot of trash talk, whatever, but that's always a possibility when teams are in the tournament. I know a couple of years ago, Iowa State and I were on a collision course and should have been there, but Creighton threw the upset Iowa in Iowa City. I think in Caitlin's sophomore year. Yeah, the sophomore year. And then in the Sweet 16, beat Iowa State. Took them both out. And I believe Creighton's coach is from Guthrie Center, which is right by where I'm from. Or at least he was then. I don't know if he's still there, I guess. But yeah, it'd be interesting, but sucks at the same time. You wish it wasn't in a playing game. You wish both teams were playing a little bit better, but neither team is – Iowa State's definitely not living up to expectations. They've got some injuries / just – I don't know what's going on with Emily Ryan and her deal. It's just kind of a weird situation there with her health and everything, and you hope she's doing well, but just has thrown the team off a little bit, I think, all year. And then Iowa I just think they're in a tough spot. I think they want to play the experienced girls, but the younger girls are better. And Coach Jensen hasn't found that lineup / rotation that she's figured out that gets the best of both worlds yet.
Yeah, I agree with that. Those young girls coming up they're going to be really good. Iowa came out of the gates really hot this year, and then they've really faded. Now, thankfully, they've won a couple games here recently, which they had to do. So, yeah, it'd be a little strange if Iowa and Iowa State had to play to get into the tournament. That would be a big game, of course. It'd be nice to see both of them in. I don't expect it. Even if they both make the tournament, I don't think either of them are going very far. It doesn't feel like that. Unless Iowa State gets healthier or unless Iowa figures out this rotation and gets hot. You know how basketball is. If right. Either of them or both of them have a good Big 12 or Big 10 championship run there before the tournament, maybe they could go win a couple games. But, yeah, both teams are in a weird spot. For Iowa, yeah, I think it's a lot of the rotation. The starters, they're just obviously missing Caitlin Clark is the main thing. But I don't know. They haven't figured stuff out yet. Right. Something just feels off with the team. But you said those freshmen, though, that gives Iowa fans a lot of hope, though, for the coming years.
And then the girl coming in, Addie Deal, I believe, is McDonald's All-American. So, obviously, they're going to get better. They got good girls coming. But right now, it's a weird dynamic. You want to play the older girls, but the younger girls are just doing things differently and better. And they just play different, too. And that's what's hard. So, you almost feel like you got two different teams and you don't know which way to go. Coach Jensen's in a tough spot, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, early in the year, I thought it could work to their advantage, where you have these two different type of teams, could throw your opponents off. But as of late, it just doesn't seem to be working. So we'll see how both of them finish out the rest of the year. But that would be a little strange and pretty cool, though, if Iowa and Iowa State had to play to get in the tournament.
I agree. So, all right, anything else you want to talk about, Trev? We can kind of go a little shorter tonight. And
yeah, no, that's fine. No, not much. I mean, one thing, I've been starting to pay attention to mock drafts a little bit more. They've got Senior Bowl and some stuff going on. Just a couple things on the NFL draft. You know, Ashton Genty, I forget if we've talked about this yet or not. Most mock drafts have him as a first-round pick. There are some rumors, though. He is listed at 5'9". There's some rumors out there that he may be closer to 5'8" or even 5'7". If that is the case at the combine, some teams may drop him just a little because of that height, being a little undersized. It's a very deep running back draft, too, one of the deepest in a long, long time. So we'll see if that hurts him. And then another thing I'm seeing is the Patriots taking a receiver at 4. Kind of reminds me of last year with the Chargers. 90% of mock drafts I saw had them taking a receiver. And I told you multiple times on here, Harbaugh's not taking a receiver at that spot. And he didn't. That was one of the easiest bets I'd ever hit on the draft. This year, I don't feel quite as confident.
Vrabel's the same way. He's not going to take a receiver, is he?
Not at 4, I don't think so. Last year I was about 100% certain. This year I'd say I'm about 85% with Vrabel, or maybe 90. So I'm not quite as certain, but yeah, I mean, now if he takes Travis Hunter there, that's a little bit different because he's a two-way player. But just a pure wide receiver, they need help with receiver. Not saying that's not a need for him, but I'm seeing a lot of mock drafts taking receiver there, and Vrabel being the guy he is, he's big on the run game. So if they need help on O-line, and if Abdul Carter was there at 4, I think it'd be tough for Vrabel to pass him up. So just a little bit of draft stuff that I'm noticing. We're still a little ways away from that, but we'll save that to after football and after March Madness. So
any buzz or anything on Darian Porter at Iowa State? I did see where he was like the fastest guy on a gunner or whatever today in the Senior Bowl. Where do they have him, or have you paid enough attention?
He's starting to move up. I'm seeing him in the second round on some mocks. And then the receivers, Noel and Higgins, both had good days as far as testing. That's no surprise to Iowa State fans, of course. So all three of those guys should get drafted. We'll see how they do at the combine, too, with the 40-yard dash and all that kind of stuff. I'm kind of interested, too, for Cam Scadaboo out of Arizona State.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward. He's not projected to run a great 40, but he's a really good running back. He's a really good receiver, too. I think that goes a little bit unnoticed. Arizona State fans know that, and Iowa State fans because they played against him. But he's a really good receiver. He's punted for him. Like you're going to hear this come up during the draft process. He's a football player. And I think it's going to be tough for the Harbaughs, Andy Reid, even though the Lions don't need him, and Dan Campbell. If he's sitting there at the end of the second or third round, I think it's going to be tough for those teams to pass on him because they're going to want that guy.
Well, and he would be a guy that would help you in special teams, be a guy, I mean, not punt, but just coverage, up back. He'd be a great guy to fake a punt with, just like, guy to throw it to or snap it to him, and then he runs it or throws it. As you said, he's just a football player. He's not going to hurt your team. To be on it, he'll do whatever you ask him, I'm sure. And he's a tough SOB, and he's a big SOB.
Yeah, and even if you bring him in, special teams, short yardage back on 3rd and 4th and 1s, if you don't have a good quarterback that could do the quarterback sneak. The Chiefs don't like to do quarterback sneak with Mahomes. So I think if Scadaboo was sitting there at the end of the third, I think it'd be tough for Andy Reid to pass on him, even though they might have some other needs, of course. But
just like the Ravens don't do the sneak with Lamar, they snap it to Mark Andrews. We'll snap it to Scadaboo. I mean, it'd be just fine.
Yeah, he's got that. But no, the Iowa State guys are looking good for right now. We'll see what happens with the quarterbacks. Obviously, the mystery team right now in the draft, and we won't go long on this, but is the Cleveland Browns there at number 2. Nobody really knows what they're going to do. Will they take a quarterback this year, or will they wait till next year? If they pass on a quarterback, then of course the Giants will get one of the big 2 if they want them. Right. But the Browns are kind of the mystery team right now. What route they're going to go?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we'll have whole episodes on the draft in the NFL here coming up. Tune in next week. Super Bowl preview. Touch Hawkeye Cyclones again as always. But next week will be 90% Super Bowl preview. Our picks, everything else like that. Again, rate, like, subscribe, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, iHeart, whatever you listen to. Thanks for listening, and subscribe to your podcast, your favorite podcast players. So thanks a lot, Trev, and we'll talk to you next week.
Yep. And everyone out there listening, Cooper DeJean is 200-1 to win Super Bowl MVP. So if you got $1 sitting in your account, there you go. We'll talk more about that next week.
Yeah. Pick 6, Super Bowl MVP.
There we go.
All right. See you later.
Yep. Have a good night.